which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right. We can do roll call, starting to my left. You can just state your name and the mic.
Nicole Allen.
Fred Cuthbertson.
Linda Fredericks.
Preston Daggett. Tim Eastridge here.
Right. All right. Well, if there is any public comment, anybody wish to make a public comment? I don't see anybody here. TJ, is there anybody online that wants to make a public comment?
Any folks online? I do see a couple of folks. Hearing none.
Then let's just hop right into it then, TJ.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll have, first off, I have a few updates for the Planning Commission. We'll have a few projects next month to look at. So this will be some land use decisions alongside some of the work that we're continuing this evening. So we have two tracks that we'll be following over the next several months. One is the high-level comprehensive plan and land use code updates that we're working to complete. Those are long-range vision projects, and our goal is shooting towards that end of the year completion. And secondly, we still have some land use proposals and land use decisions that we'll be hearing. My hope is that projects like this and presentations and discussions like the one we'll have tonight will make us a better planning commission, will make us more efficient at making the decisions before us, and hopefully get our applicants moving along quicker as well. So I have the agenda here in front of us. We're going to go over, really, I have put it all together into a single set of slides for us to review. I'd like to have a discussion about each of these items, and I do believe that we have Mayor Sheets in the room this evening. And that's, I'd actually like to ask Mayor Sheets to comment when we get to the point of our first actual agenda item, which is economic development priorities for the city of Monroe and what we're doing exactly there. The second piece of the commission will be this evening, Safe Streets, looking at priority projects throughout the city. So we're going to have a discussion tonight about areas of the city that we believe are of concern or deserve additional attention. You've got some handouts in front of you. I'd like you all to just take some time between now and August to mark up these documents, and I've done a little color coding there, as you can see, for things like streets, sidewalks, and then places like intersections and crosswalks. I think it's important that as a planning commission, we start to think about what kinds of projects are important to us in terms of safety, and that actually is part of our economic development strategy as well. And then the third thing we'll talk about tonight is our land use code review. So we'll get into a little more detail about that, but you all know that we updated our comprehensive plan in 2019. We've got a little bit of work to do to get that over the finish line, but one of the things that we have to do to make that happen is go back to our 2010, or actually 2009, land use code and update that so that it aligns with and agrees with that comprehensive plan. So those are the things we'll talk about tonight. Any questions about any of that before we start with the economic development priorities?
Now it's time.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get a presentation up here. And my hope is that you now see a different screen in front of you that shows a title slide. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Perfect, thank you. So again, those are the three topics we'll talk about tonight. these economic development priorities, I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about what this is. How many folks here in the room have heard of our comprehensive economic development strategy? Anybody had a chance to engage with that in the past before? Uh, it's a regional document, and oftentimes we don't pay too much attention to it, but they're required by federal law. We have to develop them every 5 years, and the federal government kind of puts us together in these little organizations called economic development districts. So we're lumped in with Lane County and Benton County together. And I'm actually going to show you that document here in a few minutes as well. But this is the core of it. And this presentation will be included in the meeting materials that are online here soon. So you'll be able to see this presentation if you wanted to go back to it and review it. So the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, that's part of our Cascade West Economic Development District. What is a CEDS? That's what they're called. They contribute to effective economic development in all of America's communities. Again, they section up the entire country. And it's really what I've bolded here: locally based, regionally driven economic development planning process. So what that means is that we all work together from the state government down to the local governments to identify priorities for our district and try to come up with projects that meet those priorities. And that second section there is a CEDS provides the capacity building. What that really means is that the public sector, like cities and counties and states, we work with individuals, firms, and industries to try to create a better 5-year strategy every time we revisit this, to try to meet some of these goals each time. So this 5-year CEDS, it was just completed in 2025. The primary goals here are diversification of industries and economic sectors. So the idea is if, one industry is challenged, you actually have resiliency in your economy. Not all of them are going to be. Workforce flexibility, the ability to feed those industries with access to competent and qualified labor. Infrastructure redundancy and resiliency. You'll see that we've adopted that one directly because it's so important. It touches on both pieces that we need in our city. Fair access, that's in there. We touch a lot on pre-disaster planning for response, continuity, and recovery as we're looking at, wildfire weather conditions, air quality indexes, and also earthquakes. There's a big need and a never-ending need to address that. And then what they put at the end is their internal coordination and external communication. So I want to stop here just for a brief second. I've selected 3 pages that I wanted to show you in this document that I think are going to be helpful. All right. So this, again, is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy 2025 through 30. This table of contents will help orient you to what it is that they do in this document. So you have an executive summary, you have your strategic priorities, you've got your foundations for economic well-being, as well as an introduction, and then the things I want to really point your attention to that are really important for us are our district profile, the Cascade West Economic Development District. What is our district profile? We'll actually go to that here in a second. That's the last page I'll show you on this. There's data. There's a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that our district could take advantage of. And then strategic priorities as well as implementation. So if you wanted to go through this document, that's a good blueprint for you on what to look for. And then finally, here's our district profile. You can clearly see healthcare and government are the two leading industries, followed by retail, food and lodging, manufacturing, and business services. And they break that down fairly well between the 4 counties that are representative of our economic development district. The largest portions of them are Benton and Lane, but also we do have some of Lynn County and Lincoln counties as well. So it gives you the household population, the median income, and the county seat, of course, some valuable information. So this is a 150-page document, so it's not necessarily there to be a reader, a bedside reader, but it is there so that we can start to tie our projects when we go and ask for grant money or revolving loan funds to do things like a new street or a water treatment plant or some kind of water or sewer system upgrade or expansion. Being able to tie those projects to these priorities and demonstrate how they unlock new housing or new business opportunities helps us be more competitive and more successful in achieving and getting those dollars. So that's essentially. Go ahead. Yeah.
My question. When did this come into existence?
Oh, it's been decades now. I actually don't have it off the top of my head.
Is this a state thing, or is this Monroe have this in their documents?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's what we're doing as a city tonight, actually, is I'm bringing to you some recommendations from the Economic Development Committee specific to Monroe. So it's a good idea for each city and county to adopt their own priorities. And those priorities should align with this one here. So Tim, to answer your question, this is a federally required document that is created at the regional level. So Lane County, Benton County, in fact, even our own Councilor Cuthbertson is part of this process as a board member. And she was involved in to some extent the drafting of this document, as are other city councilors and commissioners from different counties. But what we want to do, yeah, go ahead.
Where do I find this?
Yeah, I love that you're asking that. This is probably the fastest way to do it. You could go to the ocwcog.org website that I'm highlighting there. But I'll be honest with you, the fastest and easiest way, as is always the case now, is Google. So we're just simply going to go over here and say Benton County, Oregon, SEDS. And you'll see that first hit right there is the one that comes up, and that's the document that I'm on right over here. This 150-page document. I did print about a 10 or 15-page excerpt of this document for the Economic Development Committee, and that committee spent 2 separate meetings reviewing it, thinking about its intent, and crafting some goals of our own that help demonstrate to these grant funders that we're meeting those ideas, those goals and priorities. I was going to ask if Mayor Sheets is in the room, if he would be able to provide some thoughts from the Economic Development Committee's meetings, if he so wishes to.
Let's see if I get this mic up here. Okay. Can you hear me online?
Yeah.
Okay. We've got the priorities, actually. You've got them list them out here on the agenda. We've got business development, as these are goals for Monroe. This is not just federal or state or regional. This is for Monroe. Business development is the first goal. Then you got infrastructure, redundancy, and resilience. That's a huge one, especially for Monroe, and we're working on that. We're working very hard on that one. We've got to have the infrastructure in place if we want more business to come here. Kind of goes back to goal number 1. And then also, going to goal number 3, housing and transportation. We've got to have but you have to have an infrastructure for all of that as well. And then goal number 4 is a destination event location. So I know we've got, as an example, we have the Monroe Festival, but it could be more than just a single event. It could actually be more than that. It could be the Blackberry Jamboree as an example. It could be the light parade. It could be anything like that. It brings people here so they'll spend money here and so forth. Then we've also got goal number 5, which has been a council goal for quite some time, which is pre-disaster planning. We're in sore need of preparing for whatever the next disaster could be. God forbid there is a disaster. Right now it's very front of mind wildfires right now. It's very, very much so, especially with all the smoke in the air right now. Could be a flood. A flood could knock out bridges that cut us off from the rest of the county, Benton County. So these are all goals, as TJ had mentioned, that Economic Development Committee, we spent a great deal of time discussing, kicking around and discussing some more. These seem to make the most sense for Monroe, especially with what's going on with Monroe right now. I don't know if
So
there were any
planning commission,
ahead.
so I was going to say before planning commission moves forward with questions, the goal tonight is to, number one, put these in front of you and get your feedback and your thoughts on these before they make their way to the city council for a review and further discussion. Is there anything from a planning commission lens on these topics here do you think is important to convey to the city council?
Well, I think the real site district overlay, varying infrastructure to make that attract business and attract the right type of development. I mean, right now we're with the Ellis property, it's kind of a flop against kind of the center of town. So we need to prepare things that, hopefully that property can sell and get people to see our vision and take it to another level. But I think we've already voiced what we'd like to see, just all of it, and I think the infrastructure is going to be perfect.
Absolutely agree with that. Also, having the infrastructure in place, if we want to have events, bigger events, we need to have that in place as well. I think part of this, and TJ, correct me if I'm wrong here, parking fits into one of these somehow. I imagine it's probably infrastructure, but that's just a guess on my part. Or it could be transportation. Yes, it could
I
be a
think it's
combination.
actually, honestly, it's probably all of them. Parking touches literally all of these.
Yeah.
And I think we discussed a long time ago that new lease that we have basically on the property north of library, we got from Benton County that was going to be utilized more for event type parking or something.
Yeah, well, we've nicknamed it the Gateway Park area. Yeah, for parking, for a park, a place for a kiosk for tourists. It could have, even some playground equipment on it. It's access to the old railroad right of way, which you can use it'd be lovely to have that paved at some point in time. So it'd be nice to walk on and get around town in.
I don't see anywhere, if real estate is valuable as it is down here, especially to our district overlay. I don't know where public parking, or we would designate public parking.
Well, there were some conversations that we had about area adjacent to the lift station, essentially being city park.
Yeah.
Connect to the pedestrian bridge.
Right.
There may be an opportunity for at least a small amount of public parking there. In the main. But as far as like a larger area for a lot of events, that would be much shoppers.
Right.
Wanting to interact with the downtown area.
Because parking is critical, that it's goal number 4. You don't have
Yep.
parking, you don't have goal.
Very true.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It seems to me that there's probably a whole raft of details that
Absolutely right.
Yes.
Yes, the one question I have is, are the priorities in the right order? Are we focusing on the correct sequence? Of, um, and the first one, business development, seems sort of kind of vague. Can you describe it a little bit more about?
I think business development is, that can include marketing, Monroe, so business can come here. I don't, it could also include, and TJ, you can correct me on this, it could be, do I dare say like tax breaks to attract business here so that they'll build here, and stay here. And then, that's new, but what about our existing businesses? What are we doing for them? How are we marketing them? How are we reaching out and having people come here and shop here? I know events, that kind of helps draw people here, but what about the rest of the year? So that's part of business development as well.
Yeah, we would have to attract multiple new types of businesses. That's one of our goals, but also to support the businesses that are here. So it's part of that diversification effort that they were talking about in the comprehensive economic development strategy. It's what we have now and more if we can make that happen, but it's dependent, of course, on some of those other goals at the same time.
I don't know if these goals need to happen in this order, but Torrin has a great point. Are these an appropriate, if they're not in a priority order, well, then that's okay.
The goals are
If it's in
actually,
priority order, then it's probably bad.
You make a good
Right.
point because
yes,
it's,
I don't
you know,
talk about that.
there's nothing that says that these are ordinal. In my mind, they're categorical. That is saying essentially that perhaps they're not necessarily ordered or ranked, but they do have numbers attached to them. And while the comprehensive economic development strategy doesn't say they're ordered either, they also have numbers. So for us as a city, I think it would be our determination if we wanted to reorder them in order to then clearly state that they are in the order of importance that the council and the planning commission and the city agree with. I think that that's something we can absolutely do.
Well, there's putting them in priority order, and I'm guessing that we're thinking infrastructure is goal number one. But also all of these things can be worked on at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, in parallel. Yep, exactly. So we can put them in order by priority. That's fine.
Can I have a quick, this is a nitpicky kind of question, but number 4 that says destination event, is it? Seems to make more sense to me if it's event destination. Like that Monroe is an event destination.
That or destination location, something like that.
Yeah, I think we workshopped that a few times, and then
Yeah.
You're right, Torrin. I think it makes more sense to say event destination. So what I'm hearing is for commission's guidance for council, number 1 is be aware of parking. And number 2 is we need to look at the order that these are in and make a statement about what that says about our level of importance for these different items. The third thing I think is that, of course, as Torrin and I think a few people have said, we need to build out the details of these. We've started to do that a little bit, but the process is we get approval from the city council on saying, yes, these are our 5 priorities. And then we will go down the road of building out the exact details of those so that we can create a single document that sits online in our economic development and our planning sections of the website that we can point to and use for when we coordinate with our partners at the county and the state and the feds. I think I captured those are the 3 things that I pulled out of our feedback. Is there anything I missed?
I got something.
Okay, go for it.
I've been going to these meetings for years, and I've heard it stated that we're a bedroom community. So is the council going to stick to that, or are we going to be something of more of a business oriented community?
I think we're moving towards a business oriented community.
Okay.
I don't, and this is my opinion, this is not council's, being a bedroom community, I don't know that we're going to be able to maximize our tax base if we stick with just that.
And planning commission, we'll talk about this tonight too, because this touches very closely to our land use code. And that we want to bring our land use code up and in line with the comprehensive plan. And that comprehensive plan very clearly stated that the city wants to attract businesses, convert commercial street truly to commercial, create overlay districts that allow for higher building intensities across Highway 99 for future development. These are all planning and policy decisions that were made that kind of lead us in that direction. So it makes sense that we have these priorities to align with those comprehensive plan goals. And then also, like we'll start to really dive into tonight, the land use code too.
How about, another thing is, I don't know if it's a destination event, but people here need something to do in our city parks. We have, what, 5 of them?
Mm-hmm.
And there's one right next to this building that has something in there for little kids. But if you go anywhere else in this town, there's nothing for the kids to play with. There's nothing for adults to swing on. There's nothing for adults to exercise with. I've been asking for frisbee golf catch bases for months. And I get shined on. So that's the kind of things you need to take care of your local people too.
So I think with housing, the housing goal, we had talked about green space and parks with, as part of that goal, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Yeah, that would be
Yes.
extremely helpful. As a realtor, I've had people look at properties here in Monroe and choose to go to Junction City because we don't have places for the families to take their kids to go play other than the toddler park right next door to them. And so that is something that has been mentioned to me as a reason they didn't put in an offer, although they love the property. So, yeah, definitely something we need to look at.
Does this fall under kind of a term of like livability or
Yeah, good.
something
I
like?
think actually in the comp plan, livability is definitely a factor, and parks as part of that. So, yeah.
So part of that is about housing and transportation. The goal of putting those together is that you have places where people live and you have the places and the routes that they'll take to destinations throughout their day. That includes parks, that includes the bank, that includes other stores that are in town. We want people to be able to get there safely, which is why you have that safe routes sheet there in front of you. And I really want you all to think about, in particular, those red marks, those intersections and crosswalks, right? And within that in mind, where are we wanting to connect our parks? We have some of this information that we've looked at a few times in the past, and we're going to pull that up over these next couple months. But I'm hoping to begin from a place of asking you to be intuitive about your thinking and your knowledge of the city. What are the areas that we've either talked about multiple times in the past, or something that you've recognized recently, or anything that you think is important and critical? That all ties in together. So that's why we really housed parks underneath housing and transportation. Another note on that, the Parks Committee is working towards completing the master plan, the Parks Master Plan. That too is going to fold into our updates that we make at the end of this year with that comprehensive plan. That land use code that you guys are working on is another piece of it.
Maybe a suggestion, I'm not saying it needs to be this way, but maybe there could be a term that falls underneath that goal number 3 that is something like housing, transportation, and public amenities or something.
I like that.
A little bit
Absolutely.
more clear.
Yeah.
We can recommend that, yeah. Okay.
Okay, you need me for anything else?
Thank you.
I'm sure you will, Tim. Or Commissioner Eastridge.
Stay quiet that long.
Mayor Sheets, thank you for your input on that as well.
Of course, I'm gonna be here the whole time, so if you need me again, I can appear
Awesome.
again.
Chair Cuthbertson, I'll leave it to you if you want to entertain more discussion or if there's other commissioners that want to discuss this. Otherwise, I'll follow your lead if you'd like to move to the next agenda item.
We will have any further comments, questions? And just a quick question on the Parks Master Plan, are they looking at that space in Red Hills, develop that into a park over there?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ideas for that. Mark has some pretty good opinions about that as well. Yes, that is one of our spaces we're looking at.
Perfect. All right. Let's move on to the next one then.
All right. So this is that Safe Streets priority projects I talked about a little bit ago. I wanted to take a few minutes to touch on this with y'all. So I've just taken the liberty of assigning some colors that would be helpful. If you wanted to literally mark this up with the places that matter to you. You can even, and I'll send you a digital copy of this if you want to print more. You can also, if you want to get fancy, you can go on the county's website and print out additional copies that hone in really closely on an intersection you are really interested in, if that's your jam. But what I've asked us to do is identify roads that you're concerned about or want to highlight for some reason in green. So what current roads are notable? The ones we have right now. Same thing with that third one down. You see potential roads. What roads might create future opportunities? If we were to just punch this through here or extend that through there with the county's blessing, what might that look like? And why would we do that?
I got one. If you, Ray Donis, he worked on, safe routes to school for, seems like many years. And it goes from the school, out to Orchard Street, down Sixth Street to Kelly Street. And then it just kind of, I don't know where it goes, but it'd be nice to see the county let us pave a road on the railroad bed that's never going to get used and put some sidewalks in there and make it a safe route all the way to the library or the school.
So what Tim's talking about is this funky section here. You can see my mouse going on. We have, and Tim, you're aware of this. I'll enlighten other folks, and then we'll come back up to the 50,000 foot view. But in short, we have an old railroad that can be reactivated at any time by the federal government or the operator of that railroad. And while they've ripped up the rail lines, they could absolutely come back tomorrow and put them back down. Where that becomes a challenge for cities and counties is that we're going to spend public dollars to put new asphalt on the ground and sidewalk on the ground. Typically, there needs to be some guarantee that it's going to live its entire useful life. And those are things that we can't guarantee with certainty in these kinds of situations. And then there's also liability concerns for a number of reasons. So there's a whole mess in a web of requirements and laws from the federal government down to the local government. But it's not impossible, and it's an area that we really should look at. And Tim, I completely agree with you. It's worth the effort.
I'd
That
like
is-
to-
yeah, go
I'd like to chime in on a little bit on that. So the one thing I'd also urge is for us to not think just black and white on that. Because there are other types of, seems to be other types of walking surfaces. So we could do things where we have, better packed layers of gravels, like lighter, finer gravels that are packed in there so that it's at least a step in the right direction, literally.
It's already a railroad bed.
Yeah,
It's
So-
already enough for 100,000 pound train to drive on.
yeah. So,
So a car and a truck shouldn't be a problem, but as far as safety goes and firefighting, it'd be nice to have a road that goes from Orchard Street all the way to Ash Street in case there is a emergency.
and if I'm not mistaken, this plan, the plans were there. They had lighting, they had surface, they had bollards, they had the whole thing outlined. They had it funded, and the funding was not, capitalized on by the previous city administrator, my understanding. So there is, there's already pre-work there that could be eventually resurrected.
And I love that because our job right now is to identify what we see as something to resolve that's already on the ground, or to identify new streets that we want to put in. And we don't have to worry about at this moment, the logistics of how that happens. Our goal right now is to identify it and then get buy-in from the city council and the public at things like our work at our quarterly meetings or our town halls, because then we can tie it to one of our economic development priorities. We can go and request funding for it and show how it connects with our bigger vision for our transportation system. So then we'll be touching on our transportation system plan through this process you're starting to work on now. So with road during green, it would be great if y'all could put sidewalks in yellow. And we're gonna collect all these from you guys and literally put these into the same spreadsheet that we still have all the data from our last town hall when everybody wrote sticky notes up on the wall. And then the final thing, again, in red, I can't emphasize how important it is, those intersections and crossings.
So I had a point of clarification on the safe routes to school. So the safe routes to school, the money that was given to the city that we used to go ahead and update the walkway for the kids was from the grade school to Orchard Street, and then that crosswalk with the signals and all that. That's as far as the money went, and that's as far as the route was covered. Beyond that, from Orchard to Kelly and beyond, that was never there was lots of talking about that, and Torrin had talked about the piece with the old right of way for the railroad, and there were plans for that. And there was, I thought we had money for that, and I think the money got turned back, but I'm not 100% on that. Yes. I think the problem was there wasn't enough. So I just wanted to clarify all that since I remember all that.
I was trying to stay with the rehash
Right.
history. The
Right.
main reason that I wanted to bring it up was kind of in line with what TJ was suggesting. Was in terms of prioritizing, it kind of made sense that this historical work
Yep.
that we had already done might be kind of.
We can use it again.
First in line position.
Right.
As opposed to dropping.
Yep.
and making it considered.
Completely agree.
Try not to lose that thread.
Totally 100% agree.
I look forward to, making these colorful highlights. I have a lot of ideas myself, when I walk through the streets every day.
There's another aspect off 8th Street, off of Ash. If you go all the way to the end, and if you had taken a left, it would go right up to Max Drive to Shady Oak. And be a good exit route in case something catastrophic happened down here on Highway 99, 5th Street.
I've lived here almost 8 years and I've never been able to walk that area because is the easement there looks like a private?
It's private. You're gonna have to,
Right.
the county because it's county area. Once it gets past 8, it goes to county. And the county would have to, eminent domain or whatever they do.
Or at least they specify.
What about the old road commercial, how it used to go past the water tower and over
We don't have enough.
down to
We don't have enough, room for two-way traffic. I mean, it'd be great. We don't even have the key to the gate up there. The fire department doesn't, and neither does the city.
And that's the thing, especially what's happening with Spokane right now. It's like, we need to be prepared, because right now, we have one main entrance and exit, and if that gets shut down, we are in a world of hurt.
That's amazing, like the gate.
Yeah.
I have a solution for that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, an ankle frame.
They don't have that. But it's one of those things that the county pushed that through because they had extra money. But then they put this elaborate gate up there and never gave anybody a key.
Yeah, that's no way.
It's supposed to be a fire road. Fire department doesn't even have. Gotta wait for the county to come down here and open it up.
Wow.
See if you can find the key. Go ahead, TJ.
Yeah.
We could go on.
Sorry, TJ.
No, you're fine, you guys. Well, I wanted to show you something else that I think would be helpful while you're doing this exercise. Some of you are already going to know about this already, but you have the papers in front of you. I will send you a copy if you want to print it out. And for those of you that like the analog stuff, you know, just grab some markers and make the marks that you think are important. Use as many as you need. But then there's also this here. For those of you that are curious about, well, how long is that road that I'm suggesting? So Benton County, Oregon GIS is really all you really need to type in. And you'll see that first hit that comes up is going to be Benton County GIS. They do a pretty good job of having lots of different stuff here that's helpful to you. This top left map, the one that says interactive web maps, and you see the one that says tax lot here, that's the one that you want to focus on. The others here are there for people who want to do some more in the weeds research. But this one is the one everybody usually goes to. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go ahead and show you my favorite way to get to Monroe, because here you have the whole county in front of you. I just come up to this search bar and I'll type in 664 commercial. You see that right there? That's our address for City Hall. And now I'm able to really zoom in, and I can use these little plus minus signs here to zoom out if I'd like to. Now, let's say that I want to, oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's say that I want to know how long is this stretch of road right here. Well, there's these little buttons up here at the top I want to draw your attention to. A lot of these are obviously going to be familiar, printing, things like that. This is the one that you're going to probably care the most about with that question. It's a little ruler tool. And if you click on it, it lets you measure a square area, so a polygon, like some kind of square or triangle or something. And then here's the linear, just straight measurement, left to right, one single line. So if I click on that, I can come over to here and just tap once. That's my starting point. And let's say I'm curious to know how far it really is to that section right there. Well, it turns out it's just about 1,000 feet. And if you want to capture that information and save it for our next meetings, when we return to these projects in detail, you'll be able to say, I'm suggesting 1,000 feet of asphalt. I'm suggesting 500 feet of sidewalk. That's just one tool that's available to you. All right. Any questions on that? I know a lot of you have probably already used that a good bit.
Well, anything from 6th Street to 5th Street has got pretty good sidewalks already. But everything else, all got to be replaced, if there's anything. Up to about 7th and Main. On one corner, they have some sidewalks and curb gutter.
I think what you were trying to get at was where our first priorities are. I mean, obviously we can't pay for the city right now, or sidewalk for the city. Well, where in relation to this economic infrastructure of this development, where the key pinch points are, or hurt.
What's the first domino that we need to tip over and then the rest start falling?
That's exactly right, you guys. And if we can show that they align with those goals we're looking at right now too, we can really actually start to build out our capital improvement plan. And there's a lot that comes along with that. We have system development charge dollars that are sitting in funds waiting to be used, but the only thing that we need in order to do that is a capital improvement plan. All of these things are moving toward that goal of identifying what our project priorities are, putting them in the proper order, assigning dollar amounts to them, and then essentially assigning a time frame for when we're going to complete them. Like Torrance said, setting up your first domino and going from there.
We had Main Street kind of figured out from 6th to 7th. With curb gutter sidewalk at one point, but we ran into a money issue and basically engineering. But then if you factor in our transportation road width, if you went with full width, you know where Doherty's used to live? I don't know if you do, but
No.
it went right to their front door. Took away their front yard. And the same thing on the other side. So, you know, we have to have a 20-foot wide street or 25-foot street. And I'm sure we went over this at one point. So some of this is done, but then again,
You're gonna be creating some conflicts. I've noticed that on 7th, that there's been some families that have kind of taken over the sidewalk area all the way up to the street and made that part of their yard. And,
well, there are flower beds in
yeah,
the street.
you know, so there's a little bit of some pushing and pulling back to kind of gather some of the families.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. You know, people get pretty upset when they think that 15-foot section of grass is theirs leading up to the road. You know, that kind of thing happens sometimes. But our plan right now and our goal is just let's identify these safe streets that we're really wanting to focus on. Sidewalks, streets, and crosswalks. And we'll come back to this next month. So I'm asking you all to take some time, couple hours, and put those together. Let me know if you need any assistance getting onto the maps or guidance with anything else.
Would you like us to bring that in before the meeting to you separately?
If you guys want to, like, if you want to bring it in, what we're going to do ultimately is scan this. And like I said, we're going to add it to the data that we're collecting every time we do a big push. So our town hall, for example, this, for example. So yes, bring it in. If you don't have it until the next meeting, that's fine too. We can collect it afterwards, right at the meeting, if that's okay with you. We can just take it right from you and scan it back at the office after the meeting, if that's how you'd like to do that.
And- yeah.
Are we gonna go on like Red Hills Estates look and width for road, or are we going to just take each place individually as a pattern?
Help me understand your question, Tim.
Well, I'm just saying, if you went by Red Hills, the way it's laid out, is that gonna be the pattern for the rest of Monroe? What is the street, 25-foot wide, and then you got curb gutter sidewalk on each side?
We have our design standards. Yeah, I appreciate the question. I can't look at Red Hill and tell you that it checks every box, and I can't look at it and tell you that it doesn't. But what I will say is that we have very clear design standards. The subdivisions that are in front of us right now are complying with those design standards. And if that's something we would ever want to revisit, we can. I can get more detail for you all about the width requirements for sidewalk, streets, what the subdivision requirements are. As soon as you build 4 or more doors, you now are under the Oregon revised statutes that require you to build sidewalks and everything else outside of those doors. And so we can go over more detail about that. I don't know about Red Hills, honestly.
Well, I'm just using them as an example because they are finished, an actual finished street that we could look at and kind of start thinking about. But the only
Absolutely.
problem with Red Hills is in the weekend, people get to parking on both sides of that street. It's very narrow. If you ever had a fire down there, it's going to be devastating.
No, you're absolutely right, Tim. And our code does not permit outright on-street parking. And that's something that we'll revisit and we'll discuss. And I'll tell you, a lot of people don't like hearing that, but a lot of that is because of our street widths. And one way to remedy that is to have wider streets. There are a couple ways to remedy that. We'll come back to that. I promise you, everything comes back to parking. You wouldn't believe it, but that is planning 101.
The other thing, when Red Hills went in, and I didn't think about it at the time because I had pushed harder on it, but people have motorhomes and boats and trailers and this, that, and the other thing. And there's some wetlands at the far end of 10th Street. And we should ask the company to dedicate about 3 acres to private parking of those items, recreational vehicles,
To get them off.
just to get them off the street.
That is something
Just
we
be
that is something that we could potentially look at doing. Yeah. And some of this also touches on, and we'll actually segue to this in a few minutes, the land use code. So I want to make sure I differentiate these two efforts. You've got two things I'm asking you all to do tonight. This is number one. This is just the roads, sidewalks, and intersections, and we'll revisit that next month. But we're also, and if it's let me know when it's a good time. I'll move on to land use code. Some of what Tim was touching on was getting in that direction, which is why I bring it up.
It's time, do it. Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to start to open up our land use code and make some revisions so that it is in line with our comprehensive plan. Your job as planning commission is to help the city council in its goals to be the legislative body, the decision maker. And y'all are the planning thinkers that are going to be providing that guidance to them. I wanted to start off, and again, this presentation and the slides will be available for you all to see digitally. I'll make sure those get passed out. If you would like paper copies, let us know and we can print them for you right at the office if you stop in. So first off, this is really kind of a kickoff to our code update. I want you all to be able to understand the purpose of the comprehensive plan, which we call the comp plan, and the Monroe Land Use Code, the MLUDC. We're going to discuss how the comp plan and the development code work together. We'll learn how the code is organized tonight. And then we're going to identify some areas where some future updates may be needed. And that's where y'all are going to come in and help us out, especially with your knowledge about the things we did during the comprehensive plan. It's going to be very clear to you that those items are either missing from the land use code or no longer agree with it. Our primary focus here is to make sure the comp plan is equal to and in line with the land use code. And we'll have ongoing discussions in the future as well. I want to talk a little bit, especially for our new commissioners, about how land use decisions are made in the state of Oregon. So we have the 19 statewide planning goals. You can type that in to a Google search and you'll come up with Department of Land Conservation and Development's webpage about them. DLCD is the Department of Land Conservation and Development. They're an agency and their job is to implement policy. The group that makes that policy is the LCDC. That is the Land Conservation and Development Commission. And they're essentially a board that thinks about what those policies are. And then when we talk about decisions and the right to appeal decisions that are made by local planning commissions, just like you guys, that's the Land Use Board of Appeals. So LUBA is the entity that hears decisions that you make and determines whether or not you complied with your own land use code, whether you complied with your own comprehensive plan, and whether you complied with state law. Those are the things that it's looking for when somebody says, hey, they didn't get this right. The next level down is the comprehensive plan. That's the document that we updated in 2019. So I'm going to take a quick second here. I'm going to switch over to another screen because I want you all to see this. This is on the website. And so if you go to, oh, here we are. I'll show you how I got there. Nope, that isn't how I got there. So up here at our website, if you go to departments and you go to building and planning and building, you have the Monroe planning documents. And what you see there is some applications. These are always things we're working on. But then these are the things that we're getting at tonight. There's the comprehensive plan right there, the second one down. The fourth one down is that land use code that we're going to talk about tonight and that you all have printed in front of you. This comprehensive plan, this was completed in 2019. However, this land use code was completed in 2009. And there's something called consistency. That's a planning term that we use. That means that our comprehensive plan and our land use code have to be consistent with one another. And that essentially is what we're bringing into alignment right now. So I want you to know that those documents exist, and I want you to know how to find them, just in case you're going through this land use code and wondering whether any of this makes sense or you want to look in on anything. So that's the 19 statewide planning goals and then the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is essentially the policies, the long-range vision of the city, which is why you saw it extended to the year 2050. Our land use code is how we implement those things into the granular level of detail about how far away a building has to be from the property line and how many parking spaces need to be on that lot. And then all of that is what brings development to our city. Now, I put up here in the corner a little commissioner's box. Your role. Your role is to apply adopted policy. It's not based on your personal preference. The new planning commissioners, you all went through an interview with the Mayor Sheets and I know you all remember the others, remember doing that some time long ago, obviously. But it's always the same, right? It's not your personal preference. It's you apply the policy of the city. You base decisions on approval criteria and the findings that are attached to those criteria. So those of you who have already been through a couple of land use approvals with me, you get a staff report from me. It has a list of criteria that the city requires that developer or applicant to meet. And then my findings as staff, and you all read those findings and either agree with them or move in another direction. And then you recommend policy changes. That's kind of what we're doing right now through legislative amendments when appropriate. What we're doing with this land use code, that's a legislative amendment. So this is something I was talking about, this note down here. Every land use decision in Monroe must be consistent with both the comprehensive plan and the land use code. So we're going to bring those into line with one another. A little bit more about Monroe's comprehensive plan. So its purpose, it answers the question, what kind of community does Monroe want to become? Tim, you touched on this earlier. And one thing I pointed you towards was the comprehensive plan. That is where we start to say, yes, we're trying to attract some more businesses. And no, we're not trying to be a bedroom community. We do have other aspirations and goals. So what is the comp plan? It's the city's long-range policy document. It guides growth and development over about a 20-year period. These are updated typically every 20 years, and we revisit them usually on a 5-year time frame. So it's appropriate to be revisiting ours right now. It reflects community values and priorities. So that's why we're doing things like town halls and working with the Planning Commission in public meetings. It's required by Oregon law. That's a big reason. And that, in fact, most states in the United States have a required comprehensive plan and a required land use code that are consistent with one another. And then finally, we talked about a minute ago, this comp plan that serves as the foundation, the core foundation of our land use decisions. So what does it include? It includes really kind of 8 spokes on a wheel. It's the way I think about it. So it's public facilities and infrastructure. It's community character. Has anybody ever been to, I'll give you an extreme example of that in some sense. Has anybody ever been to Sisters, where you drive through and you see the old Western style of every single building facade and all of the writing everywhere? Same thing with Mount Angel. That's like that too with the Bavarian theme. I know y'all have seen that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, so those are form-based codes. A community can say, hey, for our economic development goals, we want a community character that is very specific. There's only 3 cities in all of Oregon. Don't ask me what the third one is, that have those kinds of codes. But community character at an extreme level is that. At a basic level, it's what do we want our city to feel like? Housing is one thing in our comp plan. Transportation is also one thing, and that's attached to our transportation system plan. And then there's economic development, natural resources, land use, and natural hazards. Those are the things that we're really touching on in our comp plan. So again, it's a high-level document that guides our policy and our direction. Here I want to pivot to what the land use code is and where y'all are going to be spending some time diving in. And I wanted to make sure you knew about that comprehensive plan because I want to encourage you to review that comp plan and then go back to it with it in the back of your mind when you're reading through this land use code. It is, yes, it's about a 150-page document, but also it is not a bedside reader. It's actually organized in a way where you can get through it fairly quickly. It's organized kind of in 4 sections. We have administration, application procedures, decision process, and development standards. And our administration is really how is the code administered? What is its purpose? How is it applicable? What are the definitions? What authority is there for me to make decisions administratively as a planning, as the planner, versus what must come to you as the planning commission? That distinction is made inside of the land use code. The application procedures talk about how projects are reviewed. So it gets at land divisions if somebody wants to split a lot in half, or a site plan review if they want to do several buildings on a property and activate that site with parking and some kind of commercial use, for example. Conditional uses, so things that aren't typically allowed outright, but they can ask your permission to do it. Or variances, which is similar to that, but they're saying, can you bend a rule for me? Annexations, that's where we bring property into the city. And then vacations, that's where we have a piece of public property where we agree that we no longer need it, and we give it to some other party, typically a private party. We have a situation where somebody's doorstep drops out onto a city property that we may never use. That's a good example of how that might happen. Then there's the decision process, right? It's like how decisions are made, and this is where you guys have a big piece of that. There's the administrative stuff that I do independently, but there's not very much in the code that I'm allowed to process administratively. Most things come before planning commission. There's limited land use decisions. Those go before you. Those are things like variances. There's quasi-judicial hearings. These are things like subdivisions. We had one of those with the subdivision that happened a couple months ago, close to a year ago. And then findings and appeals. So the findings is why we made the decision, why you, as a planning commission, made the decision. Either you adopt the staff report or you develop other findings on the record for your decision. And then finally, there's the development standards. That's Articles 4 through 8. So I just want to touch on a few of these really quickly. Is our zoning districts. I think you all had asked me before about the overlays, right? If I recall, Tim and Torin, both of you had mentioned this before. So the riverfront overlay, I think, was the one that we developed, you all developed as part of the comprehensive plan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
So how familiar are you with the Monroe Riverside District Master Plan document? Do you have a good familiarity with that document?
Yes, I have reviewed that. I have read that. I am familiar with it. But yes, there's a, go ahead with your question.
Okay, so this is a pretty extensive document that was prepared as a result of a lot of time and hours and effort. And this was, the copy that I have is dated April 2021. And the end of the document noted Appendix B, Comprehensive Plan Amendments. And there are 27 pages of amendments specified here in table form with specific verbiage changes to the comprehensive plan and to the land use code that has been meticulously noted by our previous planning efforts, and none of that is reflected in either the comprehensive plan or the land use code that I'm looking at. So
you're correct.
I think one question I have is, before we start the effort of coming up with new changes, could we somehow reevaluate the 27 pages of changes we already did?
Yes, and you're absolutely correct about the timeline. And that is part of that. Therein lies the challenge. We updated the comprehensive plan in 2019. The land use code was not updated. There are recommendations that were made, and that is a good place to go to complete that process. But that's where it left off. That's where it stopped.
It mentioned that in the preface of this appendix, but it basically is itemizing every single one of the pieces of verbiage that we need to make edits to.
Right. And that is a great place, Torin. That absolutely is a great place to begin. I don't want to state that those are a comprehensive list or an exhaustive list or even the exact list of the things that we want to do. And some of that has to do with transportation opportunities, planning goals that we may have now. Do all of those still align with what we're looking to do? So it's a great jumping off point, and I want to encourage folks to use that resource. But I don't want us to say, oh, hey, cool, we're good, we're done. We don't have to do anything.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we at least should start there, and that hasn't really been discussed at the beginning of this exercise. So why would we start to do something that we've already done before?
So I'm orienting, again, similar to what I was talking about earlier. I would like it if you all begin from a place of just thinking intuitively about looking at the comprehensive plan, and then looking at the land use code, especially for our new commissioners who haven't been through that process in the past, of looking through those documents and determining which items feel like we should be making revisions, which ones feel like they're correct, and then going and at a later time getting more into the detail of some of the prior recommendations that were made. And then those folks will have a better idea of were those even the right recommendations.
Favorite question.
Yeah.
So were those the recommendations that were already put forth and voted on and approved to move forward for?
This was a part of the drafting of this plan. So it says the city of Monroe updated its comprehensive plan in 2019. The following table identifies goals and policies that require amendment to implement. The recommendations listed in section 1 or directly support the Riverside District Master Plan. So this is all pursuant to reconciling all the recommendations that are in this particular document. So,
And Torrin, I want to be clear too, so that everybody understands. That is specific to the Riverside
Yeah.
District Master
Yeah.
Plan. It's not the
Correct.
entirety of the land use code, nor is it the entirety of the comprehensive plan. It's only where it touches that overlay district. And where I brought this up was that we have an overlay district that was never updated in our land use code, as well as other other overlay districts and other policies from the comprehensive plan. So you're absolutely correct. There are some elements identified through that process, and we will get there. But Torrin, I think you're kind of closer to like the 3,000 foot level right now, rather than where I want to start, especially with a lot of our commissioners who are newer.
I think one thing that would help.
Just a quick check if folks online can hear me okay.
I can hear you.
Got it. Thank you. Looks like it's there.